Oh, hello, and welcome to Parenting with Autism.
No, you're not on fast speed. Sandy's just mixing it up.
Well, you asked me to mix it up for this week, so you said pull out a funny voice, and that's the one that came out of me.
Sandy, whose voice is that?
I think you sound like Mickey Mouse, but I don't know who my voice is.
That was a really weird voice, and I hope I never hear it again.
Okay, I won't do that one again. So noted. So, hey, happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Happy. So, and welcome to Parenting Autism. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, we don't always start this silly, but, we just are in a happy mood today, and we're excited to share some stuff with you. It actually has been an emotional roller coaster for me. I've had some really sad moments, and then I had some really happy moments this week. So we got a lot to share this week. And I have my little list here about mouth sensory issues. I had mentioned it briefly last week that it was in my topic list, but we kind of ran out of time. We didn't cover it. But it's escalated this week, so we'll definitely hit on that this week. I'm going to talk about one of my saddest moments, which was when Bryce slapped me across the face unexpectedly for the first time. We'll talk about the return of the green choice card and also about Bryce's Med-waiver and the specialness of the number 18 in our family. And what you got on your list, babe?
I'm going to go over some more of what I learned at the CARD conference regarding ABA therapy, and something else that popped up in my memory today about an all-access pass for the national parks for those who have autism.
Cool.
And a little bit about EMFs.
Okay.
And I'll explain that later.
Okay, yeah, because I am curious what EMFs is. So I do want to give a warning out there for anybody listening that we have a really adorable 5-year-old boy who's in the house today because it's Good Friday and they call it a spring holiday at the public school. But he's out of school today, and so he's here at the house while we're recording. We've tried to give him food, drink, game.
All life-sustaining things.
Yeah, hoping to keep him occupied while we're in here, but he could pop in at any time, so be warned. So, who goes first?
You go first.
All
Ladies
right.
First.
Oh, what a gentleman. I love you.
I love you.
All right, well, let me hit on really the big topic of the week was kind of the chewing and how this is getting a little concerning. So for the past, I don't know, probably the past several weeks now, we have noticed, probably a little longer than that, but Bryce has been chewing on his fingers and also chewing on his clothes, specifically on the front collar of his shirt. It will be drenched in saliva, and it's kind of crazy. And, it was happening here and there, and then we thought at first when he was doing the fingers in his mouth so often that maybe it was his teeth, because he is 5.5 and he hasn't lost any teeth, and maybe they're hurting him. We were asking him, I was feeling them, didn't feel like anything was loose. And
he really can't tell us at this point if he's got a loose
really
tooth.
Can't. And if we say, do your teeth hurt, he just repeats teeth hurt, so anyway, but I know that they're not loose, so that's not the case. And then he started with the collar and all of that. So I'm thinking that maybe that's anxiety. And then I went back through my notes from the TACA conference, and I saw that I had jotted down that if your child has like oral sensory, I guess they would say, issues, that an electronic toothbrush would be a good idea. And we used to have one for him. That was that little Star Wars one.
Yeah, he wore it out.
I forget what it said, but he burned the batteries out through two of them. And I think we'll pick that back up for him. He does enjoy brushing his teeth, so I know that gives him some type of feedback from that. But if he had the vibrating toothbrush, that might help. I was getting, you go to Google first because that's a big resource. And I was looking that up the other night, and I really don't, my first choice would not be for him to have anything to chew on, like a toy of some sort. And I know they have that jewelry. That can be something he wears around his neck to pop in there if he's feeling an urge to chew. And that's great for those who that works for, but that's just something I would not prefer for Bryce. If I could find something that is a more natural alternative and a solution for him, that would be my end goal. So I dug, get my proper grammar here. I dug a little deeper, and I did find one article that was saying if we work with his mouth more, like if we even like massage his lips, or if we help him make funny faces. So I've been kind of sitting with him and, show it, like open my mouth wide, and then I'll pull it with my fingers to the side, and he's imitating, which is great. He thinks I'm a little crazy, and I think he's having fun with it. But I think I just need to be disciplined to do that every night with him, maybe like part of our bedtime routine, to work that in, because he's definitely missing something. And I know that some of it is anxiety. I was asking you yesterday.
Well, the first thing you do when you have a child on the spectrum and they're doing a behavior, you look at, okay, what precedes the behavior? So we've determined that he's doing this pretty much in all settings. So whether he's playing a game or, reading a book, with us, or if he's sitting at the dinner table.
Didn't you even say yesterday while you were at his Easter party at class that he was chewing on his shirt?
He was doing the Easter egg hunt and sitting down at the table with his class, eating snack. He was doing it. So there's not really one thing that it coincides with that I can tell. So it just must be a general anxiety.
Or sensory.
Or
seeking
some
input.
type of,
Because I have heard about that there are some children, and it may be adults too, but that some people like have food aversions while others seek more oral. And Bryce really doesn't have a food aversion issue. Actually, he's pretty darn good about eating a variety of textures and foods.
He is.
So I'm wondering if maybe he's on that opposite end of the spectrum where he's seeking more. He thankfully doesn't eat bizarre things, because I know that can come like where some kids eat dirt and different things like that. And there's a special term for that, but he doesn't eat bizarre things. However, he really does have this issue with needing to gnaw on something. So, we came home last night from our dinner date when he was at Mom and Dad's, and his shirt was soaked.
And listen, it was one of his favorite shirts, and not only that, but it had 3 holes in it from where he was chewing on it.
He chewed holes into his shirt last night.
I thought that might make an impact on him when he saw that his favorite shirt had holes in it, but it didn't really seem to faze him. He looked at it, and he put his fingers in the holes, but
because he does not like holes in his clothing.
And he even threw his shirt away himself
this morning,
because that's what we said, it had holes in it. But I don't think he really. I don't think that really impacted him throwing his almost favorite shirt away. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he didn't feel like that was a consequence for whatever.
For chewing.
And I've heard you correct him a couple times. I couldn't see you guys, but I heard you saying, get your hands out of your mouth, get your hands out of your mouth. So he must have had his hands in there while you were trying to get a game for him, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do know some of it evolves around the iPad, or if he's playing something, and I'm sure anxiety comes into a degree, or maybe it's just a habit. I don't know if he's seeking something, but it's definitely... We don't want him eating his clothes, and we don't want him destroying his clothes and biting holes into them. And see, that's where it's escalated. Like first it's like, oh, well, it'll dry.
First it was just his fingers. And now it's gravitated
escalating
to his shirts.
So we did place a call out to the lady who was his BCBA and oversaw his case before he lost his therapy services back in the fall. She's wonderful and says we can call her at any time, which we really haven't very often. But this one, I'm like, let's reach out to her because we got 2 things going on. And so she kind of assured us that we were on the right track, so to speak, tracking the behaviors, like what's going on before, during, and after. And then she had reminded me by saying about the toothbrush, and I remember making that note. And so I just think we are heading in the right direction. Hopefully, if we start doing this on a consistent basis, and I think that is the key, because we know everything is slow baby steps, turtle style, that we will get there. But that's definitely a big headline right now. And if anybody is listening and you've had success in this area with your child and you want to reach out and share some tips with us, we would really appreciate that.
Yep.
We'll have in our show notes where you can reach us, but you can get us on Facebook. You can get us through Instagram. We have an email.
Twitter,
and we got all kinds of ways you can reach us, but we would definitely welcome any kind of tips out there, because it's like with any parent and with any child, people will give you sometimes solicited advice and sometimes unsolicited advice, but you take it, you sift through it, and you see what may work for your child. So we would definitely appreciate anything with that. But that's topic number 1 for me, which has kind of been a headline this week.
You touched on it, and we hear this over and over again. What works for you may or may not work for somebody else. And that is the autism world is, you can try whatever, but you may or may not see results from it.
Yep. You just kind of have to.
Every kid is different.
Every child is different. Autism or no autism.
Yep.
Not everything works for every child. So, so I'll bounce over to you. What you got, baby?
At the CARD conference, like I said, I was going to go through an ABA section. One of the classes was on ABA. And this time it was Dr. Josh Levine, who is also a BCBA. And some tips and things that he mentioned that I thought were worth writing down, which, his whole presentation I thought was great. But the notes that I took were... he did mention that ABA should be simple and focused. It should contain simple things that they're doing, and it should be very focused on a behavior that you're trying to
kind of like what we were saying. We're focusing on getting him to not chew on things he shouldn't chew on, so focused and laser focus on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to jump around a little bit, he said that studies show that BCBAs that come from a brick and mortar institution like a college, standalone college, are better at their professions versus those who receive their education from online resources. So you can take that with
Did
what
he
you
elaborate
want.
at all on that?
He may have.
Because that's a pretty broad statement.
Yes, I don't remember how he elaborated on it, but I wrote it down because it was impactful to me. So I can certainly reach out to him and get more information on that.
Not necessary. I'm just thinking in our situation, I could not tell you
we never asked
the educational background of anybody that's
and
worked
we probably
with him.
should have asked, do our due diligence, what's your qualifications.
I think maybe
or
even
whatever.
observing, though, you kind of get the feel.
You do, if they're
I've
professional or
heard
not.
people say that they've had bad matches before, like it just wasn't working for their child.
Yeah.
We've been very blessed that we've had 4 for 4. Whatever their background was, it worked for Bryce at that time. May I ask you also, just for someone that may not know, and we've mentioned ABA multiple times, but we were at the park the other day with a parent of a child on the spectrum, and we said, "Oh, is he getting ABA?" And she's like, "What is ABA?" So why don't you elaborate on what that means a little bit?
It's applied behavior analysis, and it helps you conquer problem behaviors, behaviors that may be preventing them from learning, or listening, or going out in public. So behaviors that are distracting them from the world. And harmful, aggressive behaviors. One of the things that Dr. Levine talked about was that the top 3 behaviors that ABAs get asked to help with are self-injuring, aggression, and improper disruption. So those are some of the most requested helps in that world. He also said, even if you only have 2 to 4 hours of ABA per week, which is not very much, you can still be successful laser focusing on the problem behavior. He also said when you're trying to resolve a behavior with a reward, don't phrase it in a bribery term. So he says the way not to say it is, I'll give you an M&M if you go through the door. That's kind of like bribing. So he said you should say it like this: if you go through the door, I will give you M&Ms. So,
and that's not bribery.
I don't, that's the way he said it. So
listen, I said to Bryce tonight, because he didn't want to eat his rice with the little green beans and the carrots in it and his little meatball, and he was like, no, he wasn't going to eat that. So I offered up a cookie if he ate all of that, and it worked. So bribe or not, I'm going to have to say I'll take that.
If you eat the food, I'll give you a cookie, or I'll give you a cookie if you eat the food?
I could not tell you, but I tell you it'd be effective.
Another note I put down here is when a behavior comes on, try to immediately change the environment, which is what we try to do. I mean, that's kind of the norm of ABA is remove the kiddo from the environment or disrupt it, change the subject, redirect. Redirect is the big word.
But you know what I find with us in our home is whoever's caught up in it, you're so caught up in it trying to console Bryce that you don't think about
that's the
removing.
Truth.
And
that's
it's whoever's not involved with him, the other one comes in to remove or to distract and to bring something else up because you're so focused on this poor baby that is so upset.
Right. When you're in the moment, it is really hard to try and think for yourself how to redirect things.
Yeah.
And having somewhere else there.
But it does help when it happens. It's just hard when you're in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So also inappropriate behaviors like hugging strangers. He said, if you ignore it, that can be effective. You ignore the behavior, not the child. So, for example, when a child hugs you, like a stranger, you remove the hands from around you and use hand over hand to tap you on the shoulder. So hand over hand just means
guiding.
Take their hand, guide their hand to your shoulder and tap you on the shoulder to say hi or ask a question. Can I hug you? So that's showing the child the appropriate behavior. And let's see, that was basically it from that particular class. Those are the things that I wrote down.
Okay. Those
from
are
him.
good. I mean, you talk about the inappropriate hugging, and we talked about last week was kind of a head topic about the personal space, and that we're really working with Bryce on that, especially with his new little best friend. And so we had his little friend over with his mom and brother on Saturday morning. And so once again, I think for the first time you really saw his reaction when he sees his friend and how close he gets to him. He's
so excited.
And it's a really difficult thing to address because we've taught him, I've been thinking about this a lot, and you and I think you even taught him verbally, kisses mean love.
Right, because I was trying to...
And we tried to get him to say, I love you, because he won't say, I love you.
Right.
And so he gives us kisses, so if we give him a kiss, we say, kisses mean love, and I love you.
And now he's transferred that to his
friends. So now he thinks if he wants to kiss his little friend on the cheek because he loves him. And that's how he is telling him that he loves him. So how sweet is that? And it is sweet when they're 5.
But not when they're 18.
But I have to remember that when he's in school next year, if he finds a new friend, he can't just go expressing his love for them. Right. I mean, hopefully he'll have more language and he can say, hey, I like you. I like being your friend. But that's kind of what we're dealing with. And so he failed miserably when he went back to school on Monday. And so Tuesday, I'm like, you know what? I think we have to bring back the green choice card. Let's try it. And let's reward him. What would be a big reward for him? And he really likes going to the arcade with the skee ball.
Yep.
And he hasn't been in a while. So I thought, okay, that might have some weight. But we didn't really pump it up in advance. We kind of... I wrote his teacher, but there wasn't the verbal before we dropped him off at school. So I guess, the urge to kiss and hug Michael was greater than the urge to go play skee ball, or the desire. So he did not get it on Tuesday, and he was a little sad because he thought he was going to go, and you had to explain no. And then we tried again on Wednesday, but this time we really pumped it up. And on Tuesday night, we're saying, do you want to go play skee ball? And he says yes. And basketball? Yes. And you can play basketball and you can drive the race car. But, you have to give Michael his space and you cannot hug and kiss him. And then he repeated it enough that I know he understood that. And because when we tried to read the social story with him, when I get to the part about, that Michael doesn't like it, he wants me to stop the story. So I know he understands it. Plus, the teacher said that when she was looking, he didn't do it. But when she turned her head, she would look out the corner of her eye when he thought she wasn't looking. And that's when he did it. So that tells me he knew and he could refrain while she was watching, but he had to try to sneak some in. So anyway, the great news is that on Wednesday and yesterday, he got 2 Green Choice card days in a row.
Yeah.
And he's off for the next 3 days, but I think we'll just keep that back in place. And as we see behaviors that he needs that help and that guidance, we know he responds well to rewards like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
not briberies.
No, well,
I'm just kidding.
Label it what you will, but it is an ABA technique.
Yeah.
It does work very effectively with him.
Yeah.
So I was very happy that we were able to bring that in. And
hey, maybe we could put together a Green Choice card for people to download on our website.
Oh, that'd be a great idea.
Let's do that.
Okay.
So if you go to our website, parentingautismshow.com, Sandy and I, in the next few days, we'll put that under the resources tab. And that tab is a work in progress, so there's only a few things under there right now, but I think that Green Choice card will be a good one to add.
Yeah.
And we'll whip that up and so you can print it out.
Yeah, because actually his ABA tech created those for him last fall. So we can do that. And that's what we're planning to do. As we come across tools that we need to use for Bryce, we're simply going to share them so that we can pay it forward, and if somebody else can benefit from it, fabulous.
Yep.
So that's what we're doing. Yeah, so that was the green card, come back. And the last behavior that I'll address this week was the one that made me most sad. But Saturday night, we were getting ready for bedtime, and this really came out of nowhere, but we were all done, and he knew I was taking his iPad from him because we were turning in. And I took it as I was taking it from him. He looked me straight in the eye, lift that hand up, and slapped me across my cheek.
Did he say anything? Not
a word. And he was looking right in my eye. And like I told you, the one time he looks in my eye, because he doesn't make eye contact that often.
Yeah.
But on a serious note, really, he was looking right in my eyes with this just like blank expression, like not expressing any emotion, but put that hand up there with full boom and slapped me across the cheek. It shocked me, as I know it shocked you. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, my reaction was actually not too bad, but I took both of my hands and I put them on each side of his face, just so he is looking at me now. And I am definitely looking at him, and I am just saying, no, sir. No, sir. Then he's like, too loud. Because it's louder than I would normally talk, but it was firm, and he knew that. And I'm like, you do not hit mommy. No, sir. And the whole time I'm trying to calm in my mind, what the heck
Where
just
did
happened?
That come from?
And as he's looking at me, of course, at this point, he can't look me in the eye at all. His eyes are going up in the corner of his head, and tears are building up in there.
We've never seen him slap anybody or hit anybody.
I remembered, and I'm so glad that I remembered this, that the prior week we were at the Autism Walk, and one of his classmates' parents told us that their child slapped a teacher. And when the book was being taken away from that student.
Right.
And so
that
made me know that
class.
Bryce was there when it happened, I'm quite sure.
Yes.
And so he must have seen that when someone takes something you want, you slap them in the face. But he also knew that came with a punishment, because I didn't tell him that he needed to be punished. He wanted to punish himself. Mm-hmm. He, at this point now, I took my hands off of his face, and I think you had said something to this point, you do not hit your mother.
Yeah, I was all in it too.
And then he's this point bawling, sobbing hard, and then he says, time out, go to blue chair, which we don't have a blue chair, that's at school. I said, we don't have a blue chair. Go to black chair. I said, do you want to go to your black chair? Yes. And I said, okay. I said, it was wrong. So if you want to go to your black chair for timeout, I think you should. And he wanted to. And he got out of the bed and he went and he sat in that chair and cried for a few minutes. And then he came back and then he just was so sweet. And then he was just like hugging me and he was stroking my cheek where he had slapped it. And then he kissed it. And he didn't know what else to say or do. Mm-hmm. And then he says, no hit mommy. I'm like, you don't hit mommy. You know, that's not nice. So, I mean, at this point, I had a little crying going on myself. It was very emotional because, you know, you're trying to work through this. And again, you have this language barrier, you know.
Well, I mean, to begin with, it was a shock.
Yeah.
So you're going from shock to your brain quickly goes, okay, how do I deal with this with somebody who's on the spectrum?
With grace and compassion.
Right.
Because, yes, he knew it was wrong, but it's not like he sat there and thought about it or that he's even done it again since, because he hasn't.
Right.
And I don't even anticipate that will happen anytime soon. You know, it just like came out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that was kind of... that was rough for me, like just, you know, dealing with all that between the personal space earlier in the day and then that in the evening. You know, there's just some days, as I told you, that some days I just feel a little sad when it's obvious and it's glaring in my face. And that doesn't happen every day. And I thank God for that. And I'm pretty good at bringing the light out of any kind of darkness. You know, I can find that ray of light in the dark tunnel anytime we're going through something. But there's times that I do allow myself to just feel a little sadness about this because it's not easy. Mm-hmm. And we may seem to make it look easy sometimes, you know, because people think we're just always so yay, yay, yay. But it's not easy. And I know it's not easy parenting any child. And so I really try not to complain because the reality is everybody's got their own issues, whether your child's on the spectrum, whether they're not on the spectrum, whether they're 5 years old, 15 years old, or even adults. You're always parenting, and it follows you for life, and I get that. And there are much bigger problems and much worse cases going on. And so, you know, I try not to have that woe is me, but then sometimes I'm like, just because other people may have things that are deemed worse doesn't make what I'm going through any less painful or any less sad. And sometimes I just need to share that with you and talk about that. And I think that's where this forum and when I am around people or listen to people that kind of get it, you know, from where I'm coming from, and they don't think I'm just like, oh, all kids do that. You know, every kid choose something, or every child, you know, might have that kind of behavior where they don't know, you know, like somebody had said, oh, we're having the same problem, you know, with so-and-so, you know, who's close to Bryce's age, because she wants to hug every boy at the school, and then she wants him to be her boyfriend. But it's a little different, you know, than when it's your son with another boy, and he's right up there literally on him like lint. So it's kind of tough.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that what you're talking about now kind of reminds me of the stage of when he was 3, you know, and people, and I'm sure a lot of our audience can relate to this, people that may not know your child as well as you do, obviously. There's other people that come up to them or you and say, oh, well, I don't see anything wrong with them, or, you know, that's how all kids are, or
that's normal,
or that's normal, you know, I don't see it. But now, you know, he's 5.5 and he's still not having a conversation with you. So that's when it becomes a little more obvious and people are like, oh yeah, now I see what you mean. But it's like, I don't know, do we have this club of autism parents? Maybe, because when you see your child day in and day out, it's very obvious. But to other people, it may not be. So, you know, you just got to give them grace. They're not
definitely.
They're not in your shoes 24/7. You know, just forgive them. They'll figure it out later. autism is growing, so odds are they're going to run into somebody else with autism. So
that's true.
Yeah.
All right, I'll bounce back to you for your next topic, babe.
Okay, some good news. And I heard this a long time ago. All of our brains are mush. If you have a kid on the spectrum, most of the time your brain is mush. And somebody mentioned this to me a little while ago about being able to get a lifetime membership pass to America's national park system if you have a disability. And, I'm subscribed to all these autism things and groups on Facebook and everything. So I get a lot of information and I sort through, what I think is great and, move on from the other stuff. So this just refreshed my memory when I got an email today about this pass, and it's called the Access Pass from the National Park System. So if you go to usgs.gov, it's kind of hard to find on the site. So we'll put a link in our show notes to that. But I called the Park Service today and I said, our son has autism. Does that qualify as a disability under this Access Pass? And he says, absolutely. All you need, you can either apply online. It's $10. Or you can go to a national park or a national park office. And I would call ahead of time because I'm not sure 100% of the national park offices or national parks have the Access Pass to give. I would call ahead first if you're going to a national park, but you can apply for it in person. All you need is proof of diagnosis, so a letter from your doctor, which I'm sure you have laminated and copied 20 times by now. So bring that and proof of citizenship, birth certificate or passport card or something like that. Identification for your child.
Yep.
So $10. He gets,
or she gets,
he or she gets the lifetime national park pass, and it includes admission for him or her plus, I believe, 3 or 4 other people in the vehicle. I think 3 other people. So you're like your whole vehicle,
like a family of 4 is probably what they have in mind.
You can get in for free, and
that's amazing.
I think that's so awesome. We're going to be going on this trip next week, and I picked out a national park center that we're going to go to and get his pass. So we'll update that after we get the pass, and I'm sure we're going to try to visit a national park while we're out in the Midwest.
Awesome.
So, yeah, that's awesome. I think that's a great benefit, and thank you, National Park Service, for that.
Yeah, that's great. And that was awesome that popped up into your email box right before we went. So we've got that on our list of things to do next week. And what was your other topic you had? Because I think we'll probably wrap up with the Med-waiver and the 18.
Okay, so yeah, the other thing I want to talk about is EMFs. And if you're not familiar with EMFs...
I'm not.
I guess I learned about it at the TACA conference, and maybe you didn't. But basically, it stands for electromagnetic fields. So a lot of doctors and publications are coming out saying that EMFs may not be good for us. So you say, well, where do we get EMFs from? Well, come to find out, we get EMFs from a lot of places nowadays, including your computer modem, our cell phones,
your gadget that you got,
our desktop computers, cell phone towers, microwave ovens. Microwave ovens have RF and EMF. So I even found out that when our iPhone charger plug is plugged into the wall, even without the phone being plugged into it, it was emitting the EMF. So this week, we purchased like a plug timer. How do I describe that? Something that you plug into the wall and it has a timer on it that you can plug other things into. So we figured out that our printer, our laser printer, also puts out a lot of EMFs. So we put the printer and the modem on a schedule. So right now at 8 o'clock at night, it turns those two things off, and then at 8 o'clock in the morning, it turns them back on. So, and we've also removed our cell phones out of the bedroom because we know that even when they're just turned on, that they do emit that stuff. So it's something for you guys out there to research on your own. I don't want to sway you either way, but whatever Sandy and I can do to help Bryce and even our own health, a lot of these things help our health as well. We want to do for ourselves, if it's not expensive, which it's not, it's just a plug with a timer. I think it was $15.
Yeah, and then you purchase your little gadget.
Yeah, I purchased
to read and know how much it was emitting and like how close we were and stuff, right?
Yeah, so I purchased a gadget on Amazon.
So we can put a link to that as well.
Sure,
for anybody that wants to look into that and your timer.
That part was not inexpensive. It was over $100 for the meter. But, it's not for everybody. Do your own research first. But this meter, it tells you where the source is coming from even if you're like pointing it at something else. We have a cell tower that's probably a half a mile from us. And if I point the meter out of our window toward the cell tower, it automatically says it's picking up from the cell tower. So, I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But anyway, it'll tell you if it's a cell phone, if it's a computer router, or whatever the signal is that it's picking up. But very interesting stuff. It has become more common nowadays for us to be exposed to those types of things because of cell phones.
Just technology in general.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all around us. And you just don't think about how much it's around us.
Right. And you think about the cases of autism rising. So that's what researchers are looking at. They're looking at, okay, autism is skyrocketing. Well, what other things in history are skyrocketing with it? Well, EMFs are. The use of glyphosate in the food, things like that. So they're
just trying to get answers.
They're trying to connect the dots.
Yeah.
And hey, if we can do a $15 preventive measure, we'll do it. Yeah. And it's easy to do. And hey, we'll save some electricity.
I know. That's what I said. So is this to benefit also because we're going to save power for 12 hours?
Yeah.
And the other perk of setting the timer at 8 p.m. is you can't get on your computer anymore.
Right.
And I've been saying we need to close this office so that we can have family time.
Yep.
So it's like lots of perks there having that timer.
Mm-hmm.
So last topic here, last but certainly not least. So I had mentioned that I had some very sad moments this week, but this was probably my happiest one of the week was yesterday when we got a very important phone call about Bryce and his therapies that, again, he has not been receiving since the fall.
Right.
And I mean, except through school where he gets a little bit of language and a little bit of occupational therapy, but no third-party resources because his insurance stopped providing that. And the little bit that they did provide through for language and occupational therapy was copays and a limited amount, right?
Yeah, and you know what? When we checked with your other insurance company that starts with a B, they said that ABA was considered an experimental treatment and it's not covered, and that's one of the biggest insurance companies out there.
For bogus.
And that says a lot. So, when Bryce turned 5, they switched his insurance here in Florida. And so it just kind of became like our health insurance where you have a deductible and you only have so many visits and there's a copay per visit. And it's a nightmare. So it
certainly wouldn't be enough for what he needs.
Yeah.
Especially when we know that he has a significant delay in language and he has increasing and emerging behaviors that need to be addressed. And that's really just kind of coming. So, actually the past 6 months, because it has been 6 months now, we've done okay. We have. And I really feel like things have just started to really come in these past few weeks.
With behaviors. And I think, that's God's timing. So we actually had to take a brief break there. We heard Bryce, and you could probably hear Bryce in the background as well. He just doesn't know to come in and tell us when he's hungry and that he needs something. And so when I heard the continual screaming getting a little bit louder and louder, he clearly had eaten all of his French fries, and then he let us know through tears that he needed circle crackers and wanted to watch his Colors video. He really wasn't crying until we got there and said, "Hey, what's wrong? What do you need?" And
can you tell us?
Yeah, it's just hard for him to communicate what his needs are sometimes.
Yeah, so that's why this has been so important for us to get his therapies reinstated or available or find a way. So when we knew that he was going to be losing his coverages, we were advised by a couple people about how Florida has a Med-waiver. And the Med-waiver...
It's through the Agency for Persons with Disabilities, APD.
Thank you.
So we applied for that back in November. And there's a bunch of paperwork that you have to fill out. We also got letters of advocacy from his BCBA, from his school teacher, his neurologist.
And then we wrote one. I think those were the 4.
Yeah. So we just explained, the situation that we were in. And I thought I had gotten everything to the lady. My last email to her was, let me know if there's anything else that I'm missing. And I never got a response back, so I thought everything was in process. So I followed up in January because we had been communicating through November, December.
Excuse me for a moment. Did they also do an in-home interview as well?
They sent somebody out to the house to... kind of observe Bryce, but to also find out what our needs were and, how they might be able to help us. So that was part of the process. Okay. But when I emailed her back, she's like, oh, well, I'm still waiting. Oh, he needed the psychological evaluation. Yep. I'm like, oh, why? I didn't know that. And she said, well, if you want, I can set that up for you. The state will pay for it, and that'll give us his IQ and how bad his language is, or his understanding, his comprehension, and all that stuff. So we did. I went with him for the psychological evaluation, and as most of our audience probably knows, he did not do well because he couldn't even pay attention. And the doctor said, I'd probably tag on ADHD to his diagnosis, which he didn't in the end, I don't think.
He just mentioned it.
He mentioned it to me. He says, I observed it while I was talking to him. So
actually, he did reference it in his report and said that he would not rate his IQ unless he had medication treating that symptom.
Right, so that he could pay attention better or something.
And I'm like, well, then he won't be rating his IQ because I'm not putting him on medication.
Yeah, so anyway, we had to go through that, and that took about a month to a month and a half to set that up, get it done, get the evaluation, because the state has deadlines that you have to meet. So fortunately, it doesn't go on forever. They had a 30-day deadline to get the evaluation and the results back, I think. So that was good. So it helped move things along.
And then we did get an approval. So we knew that, this is a little while ago, that we knew that he got the Med-waiver approved.
And he would be put on the wait list.
And he would be put on the wait list. So we asked the question, so what does that mean? Well, there's about 20,000 people, I think was the number we were given, that are on the wait list.
That's what she said.
And she said it takes anywhere from 5 to 15 years.
She said that, some people call me back after 5 years and ask me, well, you said it was going to be 5 years and it's already been 5 years and we're still on the wait list. And I said, wow. I said, you have people on the wait list that have been on there for 5 years? She's like, well, yeah, some have been on there for 10 years, 15 years.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, no, this is not good news.
That kind of, you hear, yes, you're approved for it, but by the time you get it, Bryce might be 10, 15, 20 years old.
Right. And I also want to point out that this is not a replacement for his health insurance. So he will still have his current health insurance, but the Med-waiver is to provide services for him that his health insurance is not going to cover.
Right, which would be the language, occupational, and then the
ABA,
applied behavior, ABA. So when we heard that news, we're like, well, this is where the crisis letter comes in. So I really didn't know what was going on, other than we just knew that it was being reviewed, but we had no idea when. So last week I got a text from you at work because you got a phone call. It was last Friday. Mm-hmm. You got a phone call from the lady, and I'm like, first of all, who from the government reaches out to call somebody to just let them know that the case is being reviewed today?
And was there anything that she could do to help us? And this is somebody that I had not talked to before, my regular contact locally. She told me that it was coming up, but I don't think she told me what day it was going to be. But this lady was like, yeah, it's being presented today or tomorrow?
No, you said today.
Today,
this was last Friday.
And
so you sent me the text and said, his crisis case is going before the board today. Let's pray. So I got that and I said, okay. So then I sent out a text to my prayer team that I have that I know I can always count on. Because I didn't take that lightly, that we got kind of like the heads up that this is going on now. So let's pray that God will open the minds and the ears and the eyes and the hearts of these people that are reviewing this case. That, Bryce has a chance here. Let's give him all that he can have now, not 5, 10, 15 years from now. He needs it now. And so we had people praying for that. And then she called you back and she said that she needed something else about his insurance, right? That they suspended the decision on Friday. They were going to look at it again this week.
My local contact
But
called
that
me.
you needed something else.
She said that she needed a copy of his policy, his current policy, showing the deductible and the co-pays and all that
to
jazz.
show that we are paying for insurance.
Yeah.
So we sent that in, and then she just said, okay, we should hear something next week. So, again, just kind of been praying all week, but yesterday we got the phone call, and she said that they approved the crisis case, and now the next step is they will send all the paperwork to Tallahassee. In the next few weeks, we'll get a letter, and then we'll get assigned an advocate, and then that advocate will start coordinating all of that. And I'm just thinking that's all going to time out right as he's getting out of school, when he's going to have all this extra time for summer, which again is God's perfect timing.
When she said that, I was like, so you're saying that he's approved for the crisis intervention, not just the wait list? And she's like, yes. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
I just wanted to double check that.
Tears there, I know. So we're so rejoicing about that. And one little thing that I just wanted to share that really goes along with that is just something really personal from my heart. And I know it speaks to Chris too. But if you listen to our very first episode, then you're familiar with the fact that we had a child that I was pregnant with that had trisomy 18, and baby Malachi, I only carried him for 17 weeks and we lost him. It was very devastating for us because we saw him alive, in the sonogram and the ultrasounds. He was very alive. Mm-hmm. And we heard his heartbeat and we saw him moving around in there. And then, to get that devastating news that he had the extra 18 chromosome, and, if he did make it through full term, he would not live long. And it was very traumatic, and we didn't know when it was going to happen. And of course we weren't going to terminate the pregnancy because we just left everything up to God. But so after we lost him, it was hard for me in a lot of ways, but I knew I just knew God was in control. And it was 5 weeks later, Chris and I went on a little cruise. And it was during that week that God gave me this special connection, like to the number 18, because of the trisomy 18. And he just kind of gave me, like, I just knew that was going to be God letting me know that everything was okay and that he has his little guardian angel watching over Bryce. Or I didn't know about Bryce. Watching over me at the time is what I thought when I would see the number 18. And that same week that he gave me that, and it really gave me peace, I got pregnant with Bryce. Little did I know. So he was kind of coordinating all that. Well, fast forward, when Bryce was at Miami Children's, and I mean, we've seen this lots of times, but this one really stands out to me. When we were at Miami Children's, and we were in the neurosurgeon's office, actually, to see if Bryce needed to have brain surgery and all of that after his stroke. I'm looking over at the wall, and they have lots of paintings on their walls at Miami Children's. And you know, there's a lot of detail going on in the wall, but my eye went down to a really small corner of the wall that had a little heart painted with the number 18 inside of it. I don't even know how that happened, but I saw it and I took a picture of it and I showed it to Chris. And then when we had to go sign in as the number patient, we were patient number 18 that day. And we got the really great news that he didn't have to have surgery, and, you know, all these things were kind of progressing in a positive way. So
it's also the reason Bryce has his name.
Oh, yes, that's so true. And so then when we went to, I was pregnant with him when we went out to visit the Bryce Canyon, actually. Yeah. And
we were trying to think of names.
And we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl yet. And we had several girl names, and we couldn't agree on a boy's name. And so we were going through Bryce Canyon, which was amazing. And we went to Mount Zion, but that name didn't stick at us. So he's not named Zion. But then we went over to Bryce Canyon. And so we were driving along, and they had 18 miles. And at the 18th mile marker, it was Rainbow Trail, something rainbow. And, you know, if you're familiar, if you've ever had a miscarriage or miscarriages, and then you do have your baby, it's your rainbow baby. You know, that's what it's referred to as. So we knew Bryce was our rainbow baby. Yeah. And we're in Bryce Canyon, and it's mile marker 18. Yeah. And it was like Malachi and God said, and there's his name. Yeah. And that was it. We knew if this is a boy, he will be named Bryce.
And we were looking for a name that was like one syllable, that wouldn't be shortened. And
so it was just so
together.
Perfect.
It was fun.
So yesterday, when this all happened, I even said to Chris last night on the date, I said, oh, well, we're doing at church this 21-day fast. Okay. And I really do believe that we weren't praying about this specifically until last Friday, but God had laid on our hearts to pray for other people. So we were unselfishly praying for different people every day during this 21 days. And then God answered our prayer. Okay, so he answered it on day 19. And I said, oh, 19. I said, well, that's our number because our birthdays are on the 19th. Chris is May 19th. I'm June 19th. So that was kind of cool because that is our favorite number. And then I said, well, it would have been kind of cool if it was 18, but that's okay. Right? I said that last night. And then today I'm looking at my calendar and I saw it was April 19th. And I thought, oh, yesterday it was April 18th. That's when God approved it. Right there on the 18th, the day that he's like, yep. He winked again at me and said, me and Malachi, we're watching over Bryce, and this is the perfect timing for him to get these therapies. So
pretty cool. It's
very cool. I'm so happy to be able to share that, and especially here with Easter weekend, which is a weekend full of miracles. You know, and as our Christian faith, it is like the weekend to celebrate life, you know, life in Christ, his resurrection, the miracle, forgiveness, compassion, all those things. And he performed what I deem to be a miracle that this crisis case got approved because she said to you, they don't normally approve this type of case. Right. It's normally for somebody who may be in a different, you know, she described a different type of circumstance, but not for a 5.5-year-old boy. But in this case, God parted the Red Seas and said, yes, let's go through and let's get this boy what he needs now. And we are rejoicing and praising God as we celebrate this weekend.
Yeah.
So.
Also, we have Mother's Day coming up. So I wanted to mention that Sandy put together a really cool t-shirt on our website, parentingautismshow.com. If you go to shop, it has a really cool graphic.
Thanks for the plug.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do something and have it personalized.
Yeah, it's a custom, you can put your child's name in the heart, and you just have to see it. And it's hard to describe.
It's got the puzzle piece that says Autism Mom, and then it connects to a large heart that has the child's name in it, so you know that that's who your baby is.
So for you moms out there that are looking for a nice gift, you can tell your significant other or your husband, hey, check this out, or it would make a great gift.
Well, thanks for that plug.
Yeah, it's really
I'm excited
cool
to get mine, to be honest. So yeah, it's
brand new,
being ordered and coming out. Cool stuff. Well, this has been a pleasure. And as always, I enjoy sitting in here with you and just living life, babe. Living life with
Talking
you
it out.
is like no other. And we made it through another week.
We did. And so did everybody else listening.
Like I said, it was a little bit rocky, but it was good.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to next week. I don't know if we'll be doing we won't be here next Friday to do a podcast. So we are actually taking our trip out to visit some new states. So we're pretty excited about that.
Yep.
But I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about when we get back, because we're traveling with Bryce on an airplane, which he has done, but he's seeming a little gun shy now, so we got to make that all good again. And then just the whole traveling with him in general.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, so I'm sure we'll have some fun stuff to share when we get back. But until then, we hope you have a wonderful day, that the light of the Lord shines upon you, and we'll look forward to talking to you next time.
Yep. Thanks for listening. See you.
Bye.